Good afternoon, everyone. It's really pleased that you can join us today. My name is Jack Knott, and I'm the Dean of the USC Sol Price School of Public Policy. On behalf of the Price School, I really want to welcome you, each and every one of you, to this special Leading from the West Speaker Series event. The goal of this series is to promote dialogue and discussion on effective governance from a Western and West Coast perspective, as well as to highlight lessons learned from leaders and policymakers through their experiences. And today's presentation is sponsored by the USC Judith and John Bedrosian Center on Governance in the Public Enterprise in partnership with the USC Metrans Transportation Center. And we are very pleased that Karen Coyne Bedrosian, daughter of John and Judy Bedrosian, has been able to join us today. So Karen, would you stand up and please join me in thanking Karen and her family for the generous support of the Bedrosian Center. Today we're going to focus on leadership and governance in transportation. That's really a topic that as Angelenos we talk about and experience every single day. To address this topic, we have the great privilege of hearing firsthand from Mayor of Los Angeles. The Honorable Antonio Villaraigosa has shown strong leadership during his time as mayor on the unique challenges and opportunities of transportation, including issues of sustainability and financing, health, and congestion. Although Mayor Villaraigosa gave his State of the City address from that other university across town recently, we're really pleased to see him increasingly as a familiar face at USC. Last summer, he was featured as the main speaker at the Urban Land Institute's Los Angeles Transit Summit held here on campus. And just yesterday, the mayor took part in the USC Schwarzenegger Institute's Immigration Reform Forum. And at lunch, he mentioned something I didn't know, but I'm very proud of to learn, and that before he became mayor, he actually got together with a group of faculty from USC and said to them, I'm not looking for problems, I'm looking for solutions. And they discussed issues of green, sustainability, financing, and so on, a whole set of issues that help shape the kind of policy priorities for his administration. And I really give him credit for reaching out to the university and to the expertise in helping shape the main priorities of his administration. So we hope, as he goes on to even greater political heights, that he consider USC again and the expertise that we have here. Because today's conversation centers on transportation, we very cleverly decided to schedule this event for midday, so that that's the part of the day with the least amount of traffic congestion. So I'm glad to see all of you could make it. However, we know that transportation is a lot more than just freeway congestion. Transportation is inextricably linked to people's quality of life. It affects people in every neighborhood and influences the decisions they make on where to live, when to travel, how much to spend. People use streets for strolling, shopping, and socializing. And since today, as you know, is May Day, it's May 1, the downtown streets are full of protesters supporting comprehensive immigration reform. Transportation also shapes the patterns of employment and urban development. It forms the arteries of our economic life through the ports and airports and bus and train terminals. It also contributes to the incidence of chronic disease and other illnesses, causes accidents and injuries, divides and connects neighborhoods, creates noise and environmental pollution, and consumes large financial resources. Transportation is a word, but it's really a major, major part of our daily lives and of public policy. USC Price has been a longtime leader in transportation and urban policy issues. Last month, I'm pleased to report that our Metrans Center, for example, was awarded a $3.7 million grant from the Volvo Foundation to establish a center of excellence in urban freight transportation. And we're very pleased that Jen was the PI on this grant. Through our research and expertise, we help inform policymakers at all levels of government, and we educate and prepare practitioners to make valuable contributions to this important field. So today, I'm really pleased that the USC Bedrosian Center, in partnership with the USC Metran Center, will co-sponsor this forum to help us advance discourse and help shape and improve transportation in our communities. So at this time, I'd like to introduce today's moderators, Professors Raphael Bostic and Genevieve Giuliano. Dr. Bostic holds the Bedrosian Chair in Governance at the Price School, and in that position, he also serves as the director of the Bedrosian Center. This past fall, he just returned from serving in the Obama administration. We're very glad to have Raphael back. He served as Assistant Secretary for Policy Development and Research in the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. He joined USC's faculty in 2001, and his extensive research and expertise focus on home ownership, housing finance, neighborhood change, and the role of institutions in shaping effective policy. Dr. Giuliano is the Senior Associate Dean for Research and Technology at the USC Price School and holds the Ferraro Chair in Effective Local Government. She is also the director of the Metrans Transportation Center. She just wears different hats, different days of the week. A prolific scholar, Dr. Giuliano conducts research on land use and transportation, regulatory policies impacting freight transportation in metropolitan areas, as well as the role of information technology in transportation. And in 2003, she was named a National Associate of the National Academy of Sciences. And this last year, she became the very first woman to receive the prestigious Distinguished Researcher Award from the Transportation Research Forum. So please join me in welcoming our moderators.
Oh my goodness. Hey, wait a minute. I'm 1.5 feet shorter than he is. Hello, everyone, and thanks, Jack, for that amazing introduction. Raphael and I are delighted to welcome all of you here to what I'm sure is going to be a wonderful and insightful and animated discussion of transportation in Los Angeles. Before I officially introduce our mayor, I want to take a few minutes to provide some context. It's most appropriate for us to talk about transportation and leadership in Los Angeles. I'm going to share a history lesson with all of you today. LA has been at the leading edge of transportation innovation for over a century. And here's just a few facts that I think we should all keep in mind. By about the 19-teens, the Los Angeles region had the largest intercity rail system in the United States. That was called the Pacific Electric Red Cars. It had a route system of roughly 500 miles, which is approximately the route mileage of today's freeway system, to give you an idea. In the 1920s, LA was leading the nation in adoption of the automobile, and with it, the demand for new high-speed roads. We were way ahead of the rest of the country in per capita car ownership in the 1920s and 30s. The Arroyo Seco Parkway, which opened in 1941, which is now the I-10 North, was the first freeway in the western United States. Decades later, after explosive population and employment growth, LA was a pioneer in finding ways to make the transportation system more efficient. One example is the San Bernardino Busway that opened in 1973. It is actually the most productive high-occupancy vehicle facility in the entire United States in terms of the number of passengers that it moves. The concept of self-help, counties establishing taxes to fund transportation infrastructure, was launched with Proposition A in 1980 here in Los Angeles County, which authorized a half-cent sales tax to be used for investment and transit operations. The ability of Los Angeles to make the most of its available infrastructure was demonstrated at the 1984 Summer Olympics, where not one traffic problem happened over the entire event. The concept of a restructured Los Angeles, oriented around public transit that was launched with Prop A, was further reinforced by Prop C in 1990 and Measure R in 2008, together adding another 1 cent sales tax for transportation investments, the largest transportation sales tax in California, and as far as I know, in the entire United States. I don't have to tell you about all the ways that LA is leading. I don't have the time to tell you all the other ways that LA is leading in transportation innovation. I could go on about the ATSAC system, the RITS real-time information system, or the new hot lane on the 110 freeway demonstration, but that's not why you're here. Suffice it to say that Mayor Villaraigosa has more than carried out this tradition of innovation and creative problem solving in transportation. With Mayor Villaraigosa, we have seen a renewed commitment to a high-capacity public transit system, the development of bike and pedestrian facilities, an unprecedented effort to reduce air pollution at the ports, and a national effort to leverage local funds to accelerate capital investments. I look forward to hearing more about these accomplishments today. Before we begin, I want to give you the short version of the extensive bio of Mayor Villaraigosa. He was born in Boyle Heights, which I think is roughly 5 miles from here, on the order of that, and attended Roosevelt High School, which isn't too far away either. He attended AHEM, the other school, UCLA, where he received his bachelor's degree in history, so it's okay because my bachelor's degree is also in history. His interest was in civil rights and labor organization. He was elected to the State Assembly in 1994. He eventually became Assembly Speaker. He was elected to City Council in 2003 and then won his first term as mayor in 2005. As mayor, his agenda has included, and I quote, building a 21st century transportation system, educational reform, economic development, and making LA a model of sustainability and green growth. Please join me in welcoming Mayor Villaraigosa. Okay, our discussion is going to begin with questions from me and Raphael, and then we're going to open it up to the audience for questions. So let's begin, and Raphael gets the first question.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to echo Jen's welcome and just to express how excited I am that we're all able to be here with the mayor. Thank you for coming as well. Just to give you some context of how this is going to go, the Bedrosian Center is a center that focuses on the how of policy and government. So how do things get done? Jen's center talks a lot about the what. What is it that we should be doing? And how do we design our policies to be as effective as possible? So what we're going to do for the next 30 to 40 minutes is talk a little bit about the how and a little bit about the what, and have this be a conversation, then we'll open it up for you guys. So I thought we'd start with a what question, which is very high level. Mr. Mayor, in thinking about reflecting your time here in LA over the last 8 years, what would you say the 2 or 3 biggest accomplishments in transportation have been?
Well, first of all, let me thank you for having me. You've made a couple of references about the fact that I went to the other school. This is true. But I have an honorary degree, doctorate from this school. When I asked UCLA, where's my honorary doctorate? They said they don't give them out. So I got a President's Medal instead. But I have a great deal of affection for this great university, and I want to thank you for having me. My daughter comes here. I invited her to come and listen, but she wasn't interested. But let me acknowledge these people that serve us. If we can give them a big hand. Thank you. I always like to... I grew up in a home where we had to serve ourselves, so whenever somebody serves me, and particularly I got served 2 pieces of chicken because I was hungry. And thank you for that. And, you know, when I think, you said, what were the most significant things that we've done in the last 8 years? And let me put the accent we. Greg Smith is here, former council member. I did it with the city council. I've done it with the board of supervisors. We've done virtually, you know, with Schwarzenegger, when I think of all of the things with the federal government, with President Obama, with Ray LaHood, with Mary Peters before her. But obviously, some of the most significant things that we've done in the last 8 years was, it wasn't just putting Measure R on the ballot. We had to go to the legislature to get it out of the legislature. We had to get a agreement on what projects would be on the ballot. And there's a dynamic tension. And we're not a city and county both, everybody, and we should be. We should be. And so what happens is, you know, the region, in this, the city of Sprawl, the outer suburbs are more focused on highways. The city's more focused on public transit. There was always this tension between that. This is where the job center is. The city is where the job center is. People, we had 1.5 million people every day into the city, which is one of the reasons why we have so much traffic. So Measure R, getting it through the legislature, putting Measure R in the ballot, getting agreement from the parties, and it passed by 1 vote each. If I hadn't been Speaker of the Assembly, let me tell you, that thing never would have gotten out. It took a lot of painstaking work. Then, in this state, you need 2/3 to pass a tax or a bond. So it passed with 67% of the vote, but it was very, very difficult. So Measure R, clearly, is one of the most significant things that we've done. 2, the America Fast Forward. Brookings is writing a book, Bruce Katz is writing a book. He calls America Fast Forward one of the most innovative metropolitan ideas in the world. It's going to be, I think he has I haven't seen it yet, but he's got it. And we're being honored for America Fast Forward by the National Journal, I believe, or recognized for it next month. So America Fast Forward, what was that? That was our idea, because almost from the beginning, when we passed Measure R, remember I ran in 2001 and 2005 on bringing the subway to the sea. And all, you know, the way the pundits are and the media, almost from the beginning, like within days and weeks, you had, well, where's your subway, guy? You know, where's the subway you promised us? You know, Tom Bradley promised the subway in '73 and I think got it in '93, but everybody wanted the subway within days. And, you know, that was the kind of the way to, you know, so it actually gave us an idea, because in a town hall, I said to people, I said, when they asked me, where's your subway, right after passing Measure R, I said, ma'am, this was a half-penny sales tax generating $40 billion over 30 years, not a 10-cent sales tax. So over 3. So, you know, but they gave me the idea. And so we put really great minds together, and Borja Leon, Jaime de la Vega, some of the folks at the MTA, and Art Leahy is here, Mercator. We went to the best minds around the country and said, how could we accelerate city investment at a time of high deficits and debt, when the federal government hasn't fully funded, hasn't reauthorized the surface transportation bill, and hasn't increased the gas tax to fully fund the highway program. And so so America Fast Forward, which was an idea that everybody thought was dead, the acceleration of local transportation projects by incentivizing cities to put up their own projects, a federal loan program that would then, low-interest loan program that would allow us to do that, create jobs now. So I'd say the second thing was America Fast Forward. 3-year battle. Again, the pundits, the newspaper said, when we got the support among Democrats and they lost, they said, okay, well, it's going to happen. When we lost that support, oh, it's dead. It'll never keep on going. We got Republicans and Democrats to understand time of high deficits and debt, this was a great way to incentivize local projects. The third big thing, I think, to happen is a number of small things. I promised in 2005 when I got elected to synchronize every single light. I got $150 million from Schwarzenegger in the bond. That was my price for doing the bond. I also got money for the 405 HOV lane. That was my price for going on the bond. LA and the MTA got a lot more money for many of our projects. That was also my, when I say my price, I mean that's what I expected to be in the bond. Let me be clear about that. Sounds weird, my price.
We knew what you meant.
Yeah, you know it. But the world I live in, trust me. Signal synchronization is critical, not only for reducing congestion and moving traffic better, but it's one of the biggest contributions to carbon emission reductions as well. What we've done at the port, another subsection, very important, because we had one view that said, the quote-unquote conservative view, it said, we got to grow the port at all costs because it's the engine of the LA, Southern California economy. Then the liberal view or progressive view, we got to green the port because there are public health consequences to growing the port. And so we were never able to grow it because they sued us and blocked us at every turn. And so we weren't able to green it because we didn't have the money because we weren't growing the airport. So we've done 7 EIRs. We've reduced truck emissions by 80%, a 76% reduction in sulfur oxides. We're growing the port, $2 billion investment, 20,000 jobs. We're now competing with Panama. We're growing the airport, importantly, 6 new international flights last year. We've invested
It's going to be
$4 billion, 40,000 jobs at the airport. We're going to go from the worst international terminal in the United States to the best. It's the largest. So I would say those are the main, components of the. Oh, and then the last thing, what has Measure R done? And these other investments. We've opened up 4. The Orange Line extension, the Exposition Line, and the East LA Gold Line. We're in construction, broken ground on the Pasadena Gold Line extension to Azusa, soft groundbreaking on the subway utility relocation, soft groundbreaking on the regional connector, which makes it easier to interface. And we've broken ground on Exposition Phase 2, and we're about to break ground on the Crenshaw Line, the largest transportation project in the United States of America. That was a long answer. There'll be long answers today.
We aren't going to need many questions. Sorry. You alluded in your accomplishments to Measure.
No. These were not my accomplishments. We did this together. This is what I've been able to do. I'm not afraid of the bully pulpit. I'm not afraid. The joke on me is that the most dangerous place in LA is between Antonio Villaraigosa and a news camera. But let me explain something to you, everybody. In a world where you don't run the schools, where you're not a city and county both, where you have a very powerful city council, let's be honest, that used to believe him, that there were 15 mini mayors. I mean, that's the kind of the way we operated. In that world, all you have is a bully pulpit. So what we were able to do is kind of be the conductor for all of this, and the cheerleader. But there are a lot of people here, and there were a lot of people that made this happen. So this is not my accomplishment. It's an example of what happens when you can get everybody rowing in the same direction. And in this town, you'll see, going forward, it's a lot harder than people think. Trust me.
One of the things that you alluded to in terms of Measure R and America Fast Forward and so on really is the changing role of the federal government. We all have been through the battles of Safety Lou. Safety Lou was passed when you became elected mayor. After it expired, we had 2 years of wrangling over what to do next. We ended up with MAP 21, which really didn't solve anything. And here we go again. So I wanted to hear what you had to say about how the federal role is changing and how it does impact local decision making, and what should the federal role be in transportation at this point?
The federal role should be even what it was under Eisenhower, what it's been over the last 40 years. There was bipartisan consensus that transportation and infrastructure investment in a country that has a $2.2 trillion infrastructure need was, a nonpartisan issue. It's something we ought to do. It grows our economy. It creates jobs. It makes the kinds of investments that pay dividends down the line. We're now at a point where Democrats and Republicans, by the way, neither one of them want to, raise the gas tax. And there are other proposals to address how you fund, surface transportation, but nobody's come to any consensus on that. So I would say it has to be a robust role. But in the world where it isn't right now, America Fast Forward, which was the TIFIA loan program, we're now calling America Fast Forward bond program, qualified tax credit bonds, not the one, and I just met with President Obama on this because they, in honor of our idea, America Fast Forward, they have an America Fast Forward bond program that is like the Buy America bonds. Won't work. Republicans won't be for it. I'm trying to convince them to go with the framework that we've developed that's a lot closer to the qualified tax credit bonds that Republicans actually do support for schools and other projects. So that's one that we have to, that's another innovative program that we have to adopt. Because if you have a loan program and you have a bond program, you have an infrastructure bank. And in a world where they're not fully funding the gas tax or the surface transportation bill, we need innovative mechanisms to make investments. So that's one. Two, public-private partnerships. Art and I were just at one of my proposals. That's another proposal, by the way, that was very, very important. One of my proposals is an MTA that passed, in addition to congestion pricing, which I'll talk to you in a bit about. But one of them was, we said, in a world where the federal government's not funding at the level that they should, where states have no money, states have no money, particularly this state, barely getting out of the red, where there is a limit, even with incentives to what cities can do. Government has got to acknowledge that around the world, the private sector is partnering with government and building transportation projects. So we let $700 million of public-private partnerships, the first transportation public-private partnership proposal of its kind in the United States. Everywhere else they're doing it, and except for the U.S., how many international bidders did we have? We have international and national. Union Station was full today because all of these people are realizing, wow, this is the future. So here's an example of what we could do. I put $1 billion when I did Measure R to get a light rail line from Van Nuys to UCLA. Only because the exposition line went to SC, understand. Okay, but to UCLA because of the congestion on the 405. But we only had $1 billion for it. Should have had more, by the way. But I had to take care of the rest of the region, and some of these areas that don't have near the ridership had to get something because you had to put a coalition together. So it's a $4 billion. Probably a $6 billion project, right? So imagine if we were to do this. You put a line from Van Nuys, maybe even further, maybe Sylmar, all underneath, maybe light rail part of the way, and then go underneath. We're going to look at subway light rail line. You go under the 405. You have a hot lane on top The hot lane, public-private partnership, funds the delta between the billion that we have and the 6 billion that we have. We're looking at the airport connector for the same thing. Those are the kinds of things we're going to have to think about in a world of gridlock, partisanship, and lunacy in D.C., and the lack of political will to make the investments in infrastructure we need. So we're actually, the things we're doing here, this isn't just America Fast Forward measure. The things we're doing here, everybody's watching us around the country, because if it's successful here, it's going to be successful around the country. And you got to ask me about congestion pricing at some point.
Okay, it's a deal. But he gets the next question.
We'll definitely do that. But I wanted to sort of follow up on some of the things you've been talking about. You mentioned that Los Angeles is not a city and a county, which makes it very different from, say, San Francisco, which gives them...
San Francisco, Philadelphia, New York, and Chicago's not a city and county both, but the Chicago political...
is so powerful.
So powerful, they run Cook County, and it's not the same here. And so it's very difficult here to get the political consensus that you need. And if I was a good government person, and I am, but trying to figure out, as soon as I said that, I threw you. But if I was one of you trying to figure out how to make the city and function better, we should be running, the health services, the county services within the city of LA. It just makes sense for a city. We're a country, everybody. We're a country. It would make for much more effective government.
So this is actually...
And we should be running the schools too, by the way, just like they do in Chicago and New York. And that's why I've been fighting around education reform, everybody. We had a 48% graduation rate when I started. We're 65 now. We had a third of our schools that were failing. It's now 10%. We've increased the number of charter schools threefold, more kids in charters than any school district in the country, but increased the number of charter schools that are performing at 800 and above, which is a success rate, ninefold. We have got to take over our schools if LA is going to compete in the economy, because we're going to be 2.3 million down in the number of college degrees that we need and specialized degrees that we need by 2025. That's going to hurt the California economy, and we're driving most of that gap.
So I didn't want to talk about any of that, but that was interesting. But you said that city and county issue is important, and it runs across healthcare, it runs education, it runs a lot of things, transportation. But you also talked about the strong council system and the tensions that you have and a bunch of other people who are in the system who have interests. And you said that it's hard to get everyone to roll in the same direction, and I'm guessing that's really true. But you've been able to accomplish a bunch of that stuff. Talk a little bit about what you've done or how you were able to build the coalitions. And
well, one, I accepted the world the way it existed. I used to be a legislator, an assembly member, speaker of the assembly, so I respect the legislative branch. I was a council member, so I had certain level of relationships on the council. I think the best way moving forward to deal with the fact that we have 15 council members that are fairly powerful is we've got to update all of our zoning, and we're in the process of doing that for the first time since 1946. We've got to update our community plans, because development has to be done more by right than by going to a council member or the mayor and getting approvals. That's what's killing this town. When you look at the level of construction that goes on in Seattle, San Francisco, Miami, per capita, in comparison to this place, it has everything to do with the fact that it's so difficult to build and to develop in this town. And by the way, you didn't give enough credit to Beyond Sprawl that we did with your, by the way, it was mostly USC professors, but there were a couple from Occidental and the state colleges and UCLA as well. But what it gave us the template for, the thinking was always it wasn't just building a transportation system, it was reimagining a city. So, what we said was, if you want to deal with gridlock in a city of sprawl, it's not just building the public transportation system. We got to get zoning and entitlements around transportation corridors and stations to create a city where vertical density is beautiful. We're growing greener, safer, more civic-minded. People are living closer to where they work, shop, and play. And so before, we would build the red line to North Hollywood, and 15 years later, 10 years later, start developing it. You know what we're doing now? We're doing all the zoning changes, all the entitlements around the corridors, because we want to build now. And you're already seeing it on Wilshire Boulevard. They're waiting for the subway to the sea to come one day, you know? and they're building along that route. You're seeing it on Exposition Boulevard. Do you know that they had a project on Sepulveda, I think Sepulveda by Jefferson, somewhere right there, and you had USC students, somewhere by a station where the Exposition Phase 2 will be, the line will be. They had USC students testifying that they could live there, take a light rail line to SC and get there in 10 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever it takes. I mean, that's what we're going to do with Measure R and the acceleration. It's not just, and public-private partnerships and the other innovative. We're not just going to build transportation, we're going to reimagine the city. You're going to see, look at how Hollywood looks. Look at downtown. You're going to see, look at around USC Village. You're going to see that all across the city as we build out this system. You're seeing it at North Hollywood, Soho. You're seeing it at Woodland Hills. You're going to see it all around these lines. You know, apartments, businesses, you know, shopping. We're going to recreate the way the city looks like. And, you know, look, I live in this town, and I love all the homeowners and the people, you know, they beat you up and they scream at you and they tell you 10,000. But you know what? We got to do it. We already have congestion and density and gridlock. That's the only way to address it. It's not just a building program. It's reimagining and redesigning, putting affordable housing next to market rate housing, you know, so that people are living like they live in other cities, you know, not as polarized and segregated as we might hear because of housing patterns and their costs.
So I'm not going to ask you the congestion pricing question yet, because we're talking about the city and imagining the city. And I kind of want to follow up on that. And in order to reimagine the city, we're not just talking about public transportation. We're talking about pedestrians and we're talking about bicycles. And you may have noticed our university here is totally overrun with bicycles at this point. You know, my students tell me their stories all the time. So can you tell us about how you see bicycles and sidewalks and pedestrians being facilitated so that this reimagined city actually has all the parts that it needs to work?
You said it. I mean, we don't walk here in this town. You go to New York, you see people walk 20 blocks in freezing cold. They walk 15 blocks. I mean, they walk a lot more than we do. And, you know, particularly when we start zoning and planning around our corridors and our stations, you're going to see a much bigger desire to walk, because you won't have to get all across town to do your shopping, to go to your gym, to do all the things that you want to do within an area. I mean, if you go to the Village, you go to any of the places in New York, in that neighborhood, you have everything you need. And a lot of people, they go to the same restaurants, and there are a lot of them because of the density you have there. So in that vein, we've dedicated both at the MTA and at the city money for pedestrians, for pedestrian-friendly projects. We've got to share the road with them. We've got to widen sidewalks for them. Bicycling, I was already working on a bicycle plan, But particularly when I went to Copenhagen and then Mexico City and saw what they were doing, and then I shattered my elbow, and we were working on it. It was taking a long time, and I love the city, but everything takes a long time. And then after I shattered my elbow, I said, hey, we're going to use this as a teachable moment. We're going to accelerate the passage of our bike plan, creating 1,600 miles over 30-year period of times of bike sharrows, bike lanes, and bike paths. We're going to have ciclovia, where we close down the streets so people could imagine what being on a bike is all about. So you can get streets and create a canvas, and people could, say, hey, this is what I'd like to do with the street today. Cycle, walk, rollerblade. We accelerated the passage of the bike plan. We've already built, and basically in the last couple of years we've done it, we built more bike lanes in this administration than they did in Bradley, Reardon, and Hahn. And we were supposed to build 40 a year. We used to build, I think, 10. Now we're on track. I think the first year we built 80. We're at 149. We're accelerating even beyond the 40 we were supposed to build. So what it does is it says to Angelenos that if you want to deal with traffic, you got to get out of your single passenger automobile, and we're giving them opportunities to do that. We're bringing in Bike Nation, where you kind of rent a bike. In LA, it can't be like New York or San Francisco. We got to do it by community. So maybe around here, around UCLA, at Hollywood, downtown, Venice, areas that are kind of enclosed to start off with, that are smaller geographically. But yeah, those are the kinds of things that we've got to do to really promote the idea. I love to make fun of myself and say, I'm late today because the mayor hasn't fixed the traffic. But then I'll be serious with people. You know why we have so much traffic? Because you bought your daughter a car when she graduated from high school. Because you brought your son one too. Because all of us are addicted to our single passenger automobile, and we expect somebody else to get out of theirs. So, if we want to deal with traffic, we're going to have to all kind of participate. But you have to create the infrastructure and the incentives for them to do it.
So are we going to follow New York's path and give priority to pedestrians and bicycles even over the automobile?
Over time, we should and will. We have to. The same with buses. It's been very difficult in this town because people are so addicted to the single passenger automobile. They think it's a birthright. But over time, all the urban planners tell you, you got to close down some streets. You just do. But, this town, let's be honest, you started with the history here. We are more addicted, and we're so spread out. We're more addicted to the automobile than most places, and so it is going to take some time. But it will be where we have to go. You look at great cities. They're closing down streets, making them boulevards. People are walking through. They're expanding the sidewalks. They have restaurants on there. They're building, it's good for economic development. It's great for tourism. There's so many benefits to it. You got to have it green. By the way, Growing Greener was also in the Beyond Sprawl. You should get it on USC, Beyond Sprawl, USC, whatever. Jennifer Walsh worked on it with me, and she was.
I think it's actually in our bookcase outside the dean's office.
Oh, good.
We'll make sure everyone gets the link. So
maybe the dean will read it.
So let me jump in here. We've talked a lot about successes, things that have been accomplished. Surely there was something that stumbled, something that didn't work the way you kind of thought it might.
I didn't describe them as successes. You told me, you may describe them as successes, but I didn't necessarily, you said what were the most significant things. They were significant. People, academe, and I don't pay much attention to what the papers say because I know what's going to happen. They'll judge all this stuff. Well, people like you will write things and say either it happened or it didn't.
Exactly like him, not me.
And so we'll see whether they were successes or not. But I will say this. You want me to talk about something that didn't happen. Measure J. Everybody. We came up with an innovative idea. We said, hey, look, why don't we extend Measure R, which was, 67% of LA supported. Why don't we extend Measure R another 30 years? We're not increasing the tax. We're just extending the expiration date on it, the sunset on it, another 30 years. Does nothing to the tax. It'll allow us to bond against future years, and we could build the 12 projects, doubling the size of the rail system. We could do it in 10 years. Well, guess what? Of course, like Measure R, I raised the vast majority of money. I mean, we live in a world where you have to raise money to put good public policy on the ballot, but the world we live in. So I had to raise, the vast majority of the money for this. We put it on the ballot. We get 70% of LA for it, but only 66.11 of the rest of the region. So it lost. And that was a big blow to acceleration and to smart, innovative, ways to finance projects at a time when the federal government is missing in action. So I am now, I always have another plan. So, and I will do this even when I'm out of the mayor's job. I went to Sacramento, and we're getting a bill to lower the threshold to make it 55% instead of 2/3. That's crazy. This is the only state, one of 16 states, but one of the highest, because of those 16 states, not all of them are 2/3. Some of them are just more than a majority. But this is the only place where you could have a landslide and still not get something passed. That's how difficult it is to do public policy, good public policy. Everybody was for this. This time there was almost no opposition. So that was something that failed. And then, we didn't get the bond program. We only got so I'm back at I'm back on it. I'm spearheading America Fast Forward bonds. So that's another thing we didn't get that would I've liked to gotten with transportation. But I don't consider it a failure any more than I consider the other a success. It's just what comes in the world that you live in when, there are a lot of hurdles to doing good public policy. There just are.
So can I ask a kind
You
of
can
a
ask
last
anything you
question,
want.
and we'll open it up?
Yes.
Okay. So my last question has got to be about congestion pricing, right? Okay. And my question is, first of all, are we going to be able to maintain the demonstration hot lanes? And secondly, where does congestion pricing go from here?
Okay, first of all, let me tell you how we started out. New York, my buddy Bloomberg, who's, I believe, one of the great mayors of America, wasn't able to get Democrats in the legislature to support a congestion pricing experiment, and he lost the money.
Right.
Then Newsom in San Francisco wasn't able to get the political support in the Bay Area, and they lost the money. So I immediately called Mary Peters, who was the Secretary of Transportation, and I said, I want it. She says, Mayor, I don't think you're going to get the political will for this. I said, give me the money, we'll work on the political will. We had every member of the Democratic congressional delegation against it, every member of the Republican LA delegation against it. The Democrats were against it because they said it hurts poor people. The Republicans were against it because they said freeways ought to be free. We paid for that already. So we had to build support among them, go to the legislature to get permission to do this, barely got it by 1 or 2 votes in each house. Thank God I used to be speaker, because, the world I live in, when you work on these kind of controversial things and get it passed, you owe people
a lot.
It's like, the world I live in. So, everybody. So we then came up with a plan that addressed the issues that the Democrats were raising, about hurting poor people. We reduced rate, more buses. We didn't buy the argument that freeways are free and that we shouldn't have dynamic pricing. So, but we also kind of did this in a phased-in way. First started on the 110 and then on 10. When I went to the press conference, I won't mention who, but some of the strongest opponents in the congressional delegation were there in support, and I knew that would happen. In the end, people are against everything that's new. You know, look, and so where's it going? I remember your questions. Where's it going? Everybody. Every HOV lane has to be a hot lane. Come on. You know, if you want to deal with gridlock, it's not going to be easy. And you need political leadership that looks you in the eyeball and says, hey, ma'am, I'm sorry. It's going to cost you a little more if you want to go at 4:30 to 6 or whatever the time is, or 7 to 9. It's going to cost you a little more. We got to do that with parking, by the way. We're already doing it downtown. We got to be smarter about parking. And, and also building projects. Not every, San Francisco builds some housing along transit stations where they have no parking requirement, making it easier to build housing. These are the kinds of things that we have to do that incentivize, a smart use of because roads and highways and our transportation system, because we can't keep on building freeways. I mean, there should have been a freeway. You know why Santa Monica Boulevard is a state highway? A freeway was going through it. What happened in the 1950s? All the places where we were going to build freeways that were in affluent or middle-class communities got killed. The only ones that passed were, where I lived, I mean, poor people don't stop those projects. So now that we're already built out, we got to use the freeway smart. One day, look, the way traffic is, yes, we got to do what you said for pedestrians. What did you say? Provide not incentives, but preference for buses, for people in. I could see the day that not only buses, but people 3 in a car. On that lane. We just got to be smarter here because we got to keep on growing. We got to keep on investing in this town. And we got to keep on innovating.
So we're going to open it up, but I did want to ask a question. How many people here have one of those fast track transponders? We still got some work to do on this.
More to come.
No. They don't have to use it. They don't have to use it either.
So they don't have to use it. And we can wave at them as we drive by.
We can.
Right. So we can do that. That's fair enough. So we're going to open this up to the floor for questions from you, the audience. There are 2 ground rules. The first is that it actually has to be a question.
Very good.
And then the second is that when you ask the question, ask it as if in the manner in which you'd like someone to ask you that question, so that we stay civil and polite and friendly and happy.
Oh, no. They could be.
The college campus. We're going to try it.
This
see
is a
what we can do.
university, yes.
So if there are questions, first up. And please introduce yourself when you ask.
Okay, my name is Vincent Vigil, and I'm the director of the LGBT Resource Center here on campus. And I just wanted to ask the mayor a question about this reimagination of Los Angeles that you were talking about, which I truly enjoyed. I think your deputy mayor, Matt Szabo, when he was running for District 13, had a great vision of transportation. And I was wondering if you could give maybe a suggestion.
What do you think? You got it.
I know. I was wondering if you could give a suggestion as to what would you tell your incoming new mayor in terms of building or making transportation a little bit better in Los Angeles. What suggestion would you give to the incoming mayor?
Well, I'm not going to offer much in the way of suggestions unless asked. And I'll tell you why. I've had my 8 years. People will be able to evaluate them, as you said, successes and failures, and frankly, the only ones I'm going to give much credence for are the academe who will be able to chart it out with metrics, because in the end, that's all that counts, not what people. I love somebody said the other day, he was very that the humility in my state of the city was not real, and I'm thinking, you don't even know me. How would you know that, and why would you print that if you don't even know me? How can you say something like that? So the only thing I really give credence to is academe, actually studying all this stuff. But I would say this: I've had my 8 years, and I don't want to impose on the next mayor my vision for what the city should look like, they'll have their own. You know, if asked, absolutely, I will share with them what I think we ought to be doing. And you know, I mentioned all of the people who helped us do everything we did. I have great general managers, a couple of them are here. I have great staff. You know, Obama hired, I think, 4 deputy mayor level, deputy mayors to assistant secretary level positions, along with New York, you know, the most. I have a lot of really talented people. And I could tell you that if asked, I would suggest that they bring a lot of really, really talented people around them. But I'm not going to give them a lot of advice. You know, but particularly these two, I know them well. A lot of respect for them. You know, I think there are a lot of things that we've done that they're going to continue. There's some that they won't, and you know, that's what happens when people follow you. So I'm not really going to spend a lot of time kind of doing that. I'd like to think the success, whatever successes we've had, it's because, and Art and I were talking about it the other day in my office, is we've gotten behind good public policy. We've hired the best and the brightest. You know, I've appointed my commissioners, you know, for the first time ever. I don't even know if they voted for me. I don't even know. I never even asked. Most of them I don't even know. I never met. I wanted people that were really talented. And so, you know, I'm not going to do much in the way of providing advice. But I will provide support, because I do think that's important.
Any other questions? Anyone have? I think we have a mic, so stand up, please, and ask away.
Hello, my name is Nick Brown. I graduated with a BA in political science this past December. And my question is for the entire panel. I am an out-of-state student, and I commute between, well, for winter break and summer break, I commute between LAX and campus. And I was wondering why there are not any, besides the bus, any public transportation options, such as a tram or a high-speed rail. I was the social media coordinator for the mayor of Denver this summer, and we already have a plan to link the city in construction right now between the airport and the city of Denver, and I'm wondering what plans are in progress currently to link LAX to downtown and USC. Thank you.
You're right. I think about 1 or 2% of people that use the airport use public transit to get there. We did the downtown flyaway, which has been very, very successful. We did the flyaway. We already had the Van Nuys flyaway. We've done the Westwood, UCLA flyaway to the airport. The original designers of our public transportation system did not bring the Green Line into the airport. One of the big failings of what they did, and they didn't do it in no small part because of the political wrangling that they had. We're looking at options to bring the Exposition line into the airport. I'm sorry, the Crenshaw line into the airport, connecting it with the Green Line. There's not absolute agreement on it. We would need more money to do that. That's another place where we think there are public-private opportunities, partnership opportunities. I think it has to go into the airport ultimately, because everywhere else it does. But as currently designed, we don't have all of the funding for it. So we're just meeting on the issue and trying to figure out how we do that.
A little footnote, this may be of use to you actually. There's a private company that is going to do a startup, or is planning to do a startup at the end of the Expo line as a service to LAX. So you may see some of these kinds of things coming out of the private sector when there's enough traffic on the rail line itself.
All right, next question here in the front.
Fran Inman, Majestic Realty. Mayor, as you know, MAP 21 calls out freight. We have a title for the first time, and you mentioned the importance of goods movement and the ports to our economy. What insight do you have, or what advice? Several of us transportation geeks are kind of worried that the ABC, anything but California, may be applied to our national freight policy. Do you have any insight?
First of all, we got to have a national freight policy.
Yeah.
And I know you're a big advocate of that. Second of all, part of the $1.5 billion in public investing over the last 8 years has been to make sure that our port, growing it and green it, competing with Panama. You know, little known fact, when we did the main channel deepening project, 64 $1 million project. When we did that project, that's going to allow us to have the current generation of the biggest ships and the next generation. Panama will only be built for the current generation of ships. So that's one, we want to bring these ships here in the first place. Two, we have to have a lot more in the way of on-dock and near-dock rail. That's why this SCIG project, a $500 million private sector project, is very, very important. Three, the feds have to 44% of all the seaborne goods that enter the United States come out of our ports. So the feds have to help us with the infrastructure and the investments that we need to move those goods as quickly as possible through the rest of the region. So, you know, the challenge for us is, I mean, we're seeing that across the board. You know, we pay a lot more in taxes than we get back. And at our port, we're charged a lot more in fees than we get back. We get a minuscule, I forget the number, I know you know it, but you know, just a very small amount of what we pay. And they're, you know, the other senators, the whole Senate system, the way it works is, you know, 2 senators from a small state have the same power that 2 senators from a big state have. I mean, that's the way it works. So it disadvantages states like ours. So we got a lot of work to do there, because we got to convince the region, you know, that every single congressional district has jobs that are generated because of our port activity. Every single one. There's not a congressional district in the United States that doesn't benefit from the activity at our port. So they ought to all be contributing to it.
One more, we have a question over here, I think, table 7.
Hi, Beth Steckler from Move LA. And first, I just want to say thank you, Mr. Mayor. At Move LA, we have seen you over the years working away from the cameras, going to Washington, D.C. over and over again, raising money for Measure J, raising money for Measure R. And your leadership has been indispensable to Measure R passing. And we really, really hope that you are able to stay involved in all of this. We need strong leadership to make this go forward. So my question is, how are you going to stay involved?
Well, you know.
Are we getting an announcement right now?
No. I've been fairly clear. I mean, look, I'm native. I love this town. I like to remind everybody that, you know, my grandpa got here 100 years ago. I remember, and Sherry remembers this, you know, when I first ran in 2001, I tell people, I remember sticking out my hand and some people not shaking it. I remember that very clearly in, you know, in some parts of the city. I remember going to town halls and people asking me, why should I vote for you? You're not even an American. And I'd always take a deep breath when they'd ask me that, and then I'd smile and I'd say, well, thank you for asking that question. What a great country we live in, that I have the opportunity to be here. My family's been here 100 years. this opportunity to be mayor is something that I'm very, very grateful for, because to be mayor of the city that you grew up in, that your mother was born in, that your grandpa came to with a dream, is a dream come true. And whatever I do, there will be nothing like being mayor of the city I grew up in. So I'm always going to be a promoter of LA. You know, you'll see me. I expect that I'll be traveling around the world. I really do. I get so many speaking engagements that I turn down. And so I expect to be around the country and around the world. But this is always going to be a place where I'm, you know, kind of operating out of. And so, yeah, on whether it's, you know, issues like lowering the threshold for the bond program so we can make the kinds of investments, really kind of speaking to the public policy that I think will be, as a general way, not giving advice to a mayor, but certainly speaking to Angelenos about what the things that we need to continue to do. I will do that. Because one thing that I think it's hard for us to understand, how many native Angelenos are there here? You know what it's hard for us to understand, because we grew up in the 1950s and 60s, not the young people back there, but you know, we grew up in the 1950s. We grew up when LA was kind of a very different city. We weren't a global city back then. We were kind of we were a big city, we were growing, and one of the fastest growing cities in the first 50 years of the 20th century, but we weren't what LA is today. So it's kind of hard for us to imagine that we really are a city that the world looks to. I get to see it because whenever there's a head of state that comes into California, they want to come here. I'm having the president of Korea Park come to my house in 2 weeks. The week after that, I'm having the mayor of Beijing and the key mayors come to my house for dinner the week after. You know, President Xi was here last year. Tony Blair, Merkel. LA is a city that the world looks to, everybody. So we got to promote this town. And I am going to continue to do that even when I'm out of office. I think everybody knows I'd like to return at some point to public service. But, you know, if that passes me by, you know, being involved in issues, particularly issues here, you know, promoting this city as a global city like no other. I believe, and you used to hear me say this, and I know everybody thought it was hyperbole. I said this in 2001. We are to the world what London was, New York was in the 20th century, and London in the 19th. We're the Venice of the 21st century, with a portal to the east and the south. We are the future. We're the, you know, Sample used to say we're the capital of the Pacific Rim. We are, and we've got to understand that. And, you know, I'm going to be promoting that wherever I go, because I believe it. I believe it to the core of my being, because I've lived here my whole life. I know how great this city is.
All right, so we are over time, but I got 2 questions left. We have one here and then one here at the front table. So go ahead. So try to keep these a little short.
I'll try.
My name is Kate Emisa.
You got the questions too, don't you?
Master's in Transportation Engineering student here at USC. I'm originally from Ghana, and part of my motivation for coming to the US was to learn about transportation and then take some of the ideas from here back home. So this has been a very interesting conversation for me, hearing you talk about transportation and some of the strategies you've put in place to address congestion. But I'm thinking congestion is like when you've sat in the same place on the road for an hour. But you are, even here with very little congestion, you are doing so much to relieve what you have, and I think that's very good. What I find surprising here is the extensive environmental review process that projects have to go through to be approved or even built. And this kind of delays projects, or even in some cases prevents necessary projects from being built in a timely manner. So my question is this environmental review process, CEQA, NEPA, really helpful to transportation? And what's the way forward? Thank you.
Thank you. One of the things I say is part of my frustration with Washington, but with politics and public policy overall. I think it's more, you saw me, I was chair of the Democratic Party convention. I campaigned for President Obama in virtually every battleground state. I was one of the most active surrogates. But I never shrunk from saying, while it's more broken on the right, and I believe it is markedly more broken on the right, it is also broken on the left. In order to restripe bike lanes, we needed environmental impact report. So I went to the Democrats and I said, this is crazy. Everybody wants bike lanes. All the environmentalists want bike lanes. Everybody wants bike lanes in this town. Why do I need an environmental report to restrap a lane? Democrats said, oh, that's stupid. But nobody would carry the bill. They didn't want to challenge the enviros. You know, by the way, when we did the HOV lane, I had to take them on to do a design build because we were going to lose 70 state engineer jobs, but create thousands of union construction jobs. Our environmental, particularly CEQA, is broken. We have got to challenge the left and Democrats on that issue. One of the things we did with TIFIA is we said, even though we have stricter environmental laws, the way it went is you had to do theirs first or ours first, whichever one, but you had to do them consecutively. So one before the other, right? You couldn't do them at the same time. Now we could do them at the same time, and you could actually, if one is a little stronger, you don't have to do the other. We've got to be smarter about stuff like that. It costs so much, and there's no certainty. And that's where the left, I'll be honest. You know, I can't, it's what you and I are so close. I mean, neither one of us like ideologues. You know, I can't stand people that can't think out of the box, that are so blind to to orthodoxy, they can't be creative. And our environmental laws are broken when you see how difficult it is to build transportation lines. I mean, they can block you, they can go to the public utilities, they can do all these things that just add cost. And, you know, and two people can sue on things and hold you up in a way that just doesn't make any sense. Now, we don't want to be like some countries where you don't have any of that, but there's a middle ground. There really is. And we haven't found it yet. And I'm going to tell you, I think what you'll see me do, you said, what am I going to do about LA? I'm going to be promoting LA. But you're going to see me talking a lot about public-private partnerships, innovative transportation investments, the broken tax system, you know, environmental laws that are just too strict and restrictive, you know. And by the way, there's not been a greener mayor in this town and in the country. We have the lowest, we have the highest, we've reduced carbon emissions by 28%. The #1 American city, #1, 5 in the world, behind London, Copenhagen at 40, Berlin at 36, Toronto at 34. So we're green, but we got to be smart. And honestly, when I say it's broken on both sides, you got environmental organizations that want to, I mean, these are the same people, by the way, that say, let's reduce carbon emissions, climate change is the #1 issue, and then you can't build transmission lines in the desert because you're killing tortoises or ruining the landscape, or you can't build windmills because you're killing birds. I mean, come on, everybody. I'm looking for the radical middle, and I define the radical middle, the center that moves you forward, not the blind allegiance on the right, these guys who don't want to fund anything. They want to, you know, don't want government. The private sector should do everything. And then the other guys who just block you at every turn. You know, I mean, that's what I think we got to do.
All right, one last question right here, Cherry.
I can say so not a long question because the mayor has already answered the question, really. But I have got one that I'd like to ask him, and it's around the fact that I'm from Britain, and people probably know that we have one of the best transporting system, at least in London we do.
Yes, you do.
And
London and Tokyo.
And in Tokyo, but you know, I'm here to talk about
London.
And and it's indeed you know, a magnificent thing, and I'm sure many people have seen that. And my question to you is, how can we actually encourage the general public here to actually use public transport? Because what I have noticed is that only a certain group of people tend to use public transport. So education, I would say, is necessary. So what are you going to do about that?
Well, we're already doing it. 9 million people a month are now using our light rail system, right? Light rail and subway? Is that the number?
90,000 a day on Blue Line only. We're carrying about more than a quarter million a day on trains, on buses, or trains. We're going to have 500 million rides this year.
500 million rides this year. People are already starting to use the system. As we build it out, they'll use it more. As we zone and reimagine the city, as I spoke, and create density and housing along transportation lines and stations, you'll see a lot more of that. As congestion gets worse, people do things like, okay, it's Friday, maybe I'll take the bus or the train or and over time, look, our new generation, you know what my son says? He always says, oh, you're the greenest mayor, oh, you're the transportation mayor. You know, he loves that. He says, but the difference between you and me, he says, I actually use my bike to go to Northridge. I actually use the bus and the train. He says, we live sustainability. So young people are starting to use public transit to a much greater degree than their parents or their grandparents. And that generational change, I mean, this commitment where you say, I want to live the sustainability policies that I believe in, I want to live them, that's going to also do more. And then congestion pricing helpings and all the rest of it. All of these things will help to promote, but certainly building it out and creating what creating planning and zoning around corridors and stations brings you is a built-in ridership. Because now it's 2 blocks away, and you say, oh, geez, I'll get, and I can get, and it actually gets somewhere, and I can get, okay, I'll get on the system. I mean, that's what will happen over time. It's going to happen over time. It's not going to happen overnight, but it will happen. And, you know, we got to continue to advocate for that.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're out of, we've gone way over. I'm going to get beaten up after this thing, so please,
The only one beating you up is me, and I'm okay with it.
Oh, no, we can talk about getting beaten up. This is hardly that. But I wanted to thank you, and I want to thank all of you. This has been a really tremendous event.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Wow. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And it's been a nice journey through 8 years of transportation policy here in Los Angeles. I always try to summarize with some reflections of what I've heard, and you know, a couple things jumped out at me. One is, we didn't talk as much about this, but your job has to be successful and effective, and this requires tremendous working of personal relationships and understanding people, what drives and motivates them, hearing them, and then responding. That's really an important and impressive tool or talent that you have. The second thing is we have heard basically an hour's worth of creative, innovative, think outside the box ideas. And you know, good leadership has got to start from a foundation of ideas. You need to know what you want to do and get people to go in that direction. And that's been really interesting to listen to you. And then the third thing I would close by saying is that you know, this was an unscripted conversation, and we had probably 14 questions that we were ready to ask, not knowing how he would be in terms of responding to any of them. And what we've seen is an hour of unbridled passion on transportation issues and on the quest for, I'll use your words, the radical middle, to get things done and to make things better. And there's probably no greater testimony than we can give for a public official, that they're focused on getting things done and making things happen, and you've done that in a tremendous way. So I want to thank you for your service to the city of Los Angeles, and I want to thank all of you for being here. The last thing I would say is thank you. I got two more things to say, actually, because I'll get in trouble again. I want to say thank you to my colleague and partner here in moderation, Jen Giuliano. She is truly a national rock star in transportation, and you should try to hear from her as often as possible. And then none of this would have been possible without our staff. So you've seen people, Donna Jean and Vicki and Aubrey. Thank them for your assistance as well. And then the last thing, and this is truly the last thing, we call this series Leading from the West because it's my view, and I think Jen believes this as well, that the innovative ideas, the things that are happening out here are not appropriately appreciated by the rest of the country. So when you go out, tell people that there are great things happening here. Tell them of the great things happening here so that they look to the smart places to get good policy done, and we can truly embrace our role as a leader in policymaking in all areas. So thank you, have a great rest of the week, and keep an eye out for both of our programs. Thank you.